Good evening, friends. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are two retired New York City police detectives, and if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, consider hitting that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight, folks, we're going to talk to you about the University of Idaho's plans to continue to go forward to demolish 1122 King Road. That is the King Road homicide crime scene. They're going to tear that building down, and they're going forward with their plans. And I want to get your thoughts. But before we get into it, I want to say a special thank you to you, the Patreon supporters, the channel members, the moderators, and all the folks who actively engage in this community. You guys are what makes this a great place, and I give thanks and praise to each and every one of you. Thank you to the replay viewers, the folks who leave comments, the live chatters, and everyone who comes on in and contributes to this great community. You are, again, what makes this a fantastic place to be. Again, I want to just put out here in the spotlight is University of Idaho has the president and some of his staff have recently put out communications to the families of these four victims, Ethan, Zaina, Kaylee, and Maddie. Their families were notified by email or letter and or both that they have their intentions to demolish 1122 King Road. And a lot of us, and I know that there's a bunch of people here that agree with me, a lot of us are cringing at the thought of that, because what if the jury, when this trial commences, wants to go out to this homicide scene and see it for themselves? We presented to you Faro Industries, the 3D laser scanners, and how great that technology is. But a lot of folks feel like there's nothing like actually being in the crime scene. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Let me know down below in the comment section. Let me know here in the chat by pressing a 1 if you feel that the King Road homicide crime scene should be preserved until after the trial is complete. Press a 1 if you feel that it should be torn down and made into whatever they deem fit. Press a 2. I'd just like to see how many people here in the chat agree or disagree. And that's what's great about here, is that we can always get a lot of different opinions from a lot of different people. And I see a lot of number ones coming across. Jeff is banging in there with a number 1. Let's see who else. I'm just going to set up the next video. Let me just scale the chat. Wilesy Pony, my good friend down in Florida, she puts a 1 in the chat. Aline Bernard, number 1. I didn't see any number 2s, as a matter of fact, come across the screen. There's Angela Ing. Mistake. Angel Coleman. I know Angela was here. I thought I saw her. Diane B. from across the street, my neighbor, good friend, and moderator. She says, keep it up. Wait until the trial is over. And, that's the general consensus with a lot of people here. Miss Donna Marie is here. Rochella and Pete Pranzo, thank you for joining. This is a sticky situation. Let's listen in to this letter. Banfield actually reads the letter from the University of Idaho. So it's important that we listen to this and hear what they have to say. So I'm going to put this full screen and let's take a listen in.
I just want to read this letter to you, word for word, without any editing. Okay, it begins this way. I am the acting general counsel for the University of Idaho and oversee the legal services for the university. I first want to express my condolences to each of you for the tragic loss that you've suffered. I greatly appreciate the positive manner in which you have interacted with the university in the aftermath of this tragedy. I am writing to communicate to each of you regarding the university's plans for the house at 1122 King Road. As was conveyed to you by Dean of Students Blake Eccles, the homeowner gifted the house to the university with the intent by both parties that it be demolished. Before doing so, we will complete remediation within the house to address biohazards and chemical hazards that exist as a result of the crimes and ensuing investigation. At the completion of the remediation, we intend to have the remediation team gather any items of personal property that do not appear to be contaminated and transfer them to university personnel who will take these items to a secure off-site location for representative members of the families to review and recover items of your family members that you wish to keep. Items not selected will then be properly disposed of. This will not apply to large, bulky items such as sofas, beds, or the like, to the extent that any remain on site. If you have specific items you wish to be on the lookout for, regardless of size, please let me know. If we can locate and retain them for you, we will. We intend to proceed with demolition as soon after completion of the remediation as can be done. We do not yet have a specific date for when this will occur. We will notify you of the demolition date in advance so you are not caught by surprise by media reports. In the interim, we are making every effort to respect the dignity of your loved ones, and our activities will be done outside of media scrutiny as much as possible. The house is currently surrounded by construction fencing. The windows and doors have been securely boarded, and we are not allowing access into the house by anyone not specifically authorized by the university. Anyone authorized to enter the house will be required to agree to strict non-disclosure and will be prohibited from taking photographs or otherwise recording the inside. This communication constitutes the university's formal notice to you of our intention to proceed with remediation and demolition as described above. If you have any concerns with these plans, please contact me by April 3rd of 2023. We will address those prior to proceeding. If you have retained legal counsel, I encourage you to share this communication, notifying you of the proposed plans. You or your counsel may contact the Office of General Counsel via email, that's redacted, or call me at the phone number listed below, which I've redacted, to discuss any concerns or objections that you may have. Once again, I want to express my deepest sympathy and my condolences to each family member. It is my hope that the university's plan to remove the house helps you in your healing. A reply indicating you have received this email would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for.
So there you have it. A very detailed letter of plan of action. Many folks, and Ed Wallace is traveling right now and he's on the road. He may be on a plane. He may be waiting for a plane. I know he was delayed before when I talked to him, but Ed Wallace is here in the chat. And he, again, when I asked Ed Wallace that question as a crime scene unit professional, as a expert in forensics and crime scene preservation, Ed said no to hold that house. And again, he's here with us in the chat. He's watching, he's listening. And when you get something coming like from Ed and Barbara Butcher and Murray Marks, and I asked several other professionals their opinions, and they were just against it. Leave the house. There's Ed Wallace in the chat saying leave the house up till after trial. But unfortunately, that's not the position that they're looking at here. I'm gonna play just one more little piece, and then we're gonna get into a conversation. I want some of you guys to call in and let me know what your thoughts are, because this community, which is a great place to be, we get to hear from everybody. So I'm gonna, in a few moments, share a link for you guys to come up and give your thoughts, express your thoughts on what you think. Should this house be demolished and go ahead with the plans, or should they wait? But until then, let me just put this. There's another little clip where Banfield is talking with our good friend Brian Enton. So I want to hear what Brian has to say and some additional information on this.
Yeah, it was very, very sad, Ashley, just because we had, Yeah, it was very, very sad, Ashley, just because we had been so into the investigation of the case at that point, and it was just a very human moment then seeing the victim's items brought out. But you'll notice the U-Haul truck, which the police chief was driving, by the way, and it was police officers who were working the case who were bringing the items out, so it was emotional for them too. But you'll notice that U-Haul, it wasn't a very big U-Haul, so it clearly wasn't all of the items that belonged to the kids inside the house. It was just some of them. Which explains why there are more items in the house and why likely the families are going to want to retrieve some more of those items. So, couches, we did see the mattresses come out at one point, but couches, other pieces of furniture, all sorts of stuff. Again, you see how small that U-Haul was. You can just imagine all the other items that are still left behind there.
So, Brian, on December 30th, that was the day that Brian Kohberger was arrested. Within hours of his arrest, his public defender, Ann Taylor, put out a request to stop all remediation, all cleaning. And at that time, I remember us seeing these privacy curtains going up, and it looked as though they were going to empty out, big items, and then that immediately stopped. But there were big items that were still unloaded. What was the progression of that? And what happened with whatever was taken out of the house after the video we just showed?
Yeah, so there was that initial time where you just saw where the chief of police backed the U-Haul in and they took out a number of the personal items and then returned those to the families. Then there was another time that they went to the house and started removing other items. The mattresses were really the most visual thing that we could see. They were putting them in the back of pickup trucks. They were really starting to clear out the house, or at least start the process to do that. And that is when they immediately halted it. The public defender asked for it all to be stopped, which is really, really interesting because they were in the middle of doing it and they just shut the whole thing down. Exactly what was going on behind the scenes was still sort of unclear. It appears perhaps the public defender wanted an opportunity to really look through the house.
So I wanted to say that Ed Wallace and I did a live stream about this. We were live talking about this as that was happening. Remember, Brian Kohberger was collared on December 30th. He was arrested in Pennsylvania, and they had the remediation vehicle, the company that was cleaning and doing the crime scene cleanup. Ann Taylor put the order in with the judge to stop that, and the judge granted it. The question going forward is, will somebody at the last minute put in a request? Will the defense or the prosecution, or are they all on the same page? Are they on board with demolition and demoing this home? The 1122 King Road, the King Road homicide crime scene. Thank you to everybody who's joining. I want to say hello to M. Finn, Natasha Richardson, good friend and subscriber here on Crime Time with DutyRon. Janelle Keene, thank you. Thank you for being here. Much appreciated. Sweet One is also watching. Thank you for hanging out with us. So let's put this back on and continue with this.
House before things were moved around too much. But all of that stuff before they could get it out was left inside, which again explains why they now have to go through this process now and remove all the additional items from the house.
Can understand that. I want to end our discussion just with an answer that the university gave us when we asked if this is officially no longer a crime scene, because we have not had that announcement made by the police that was it a crime scene and has the title transferred. And they kind of gave us a half answer. Brian, do you have the letter in front of you, the executive director of communications?
Yeah, I have the quote here. And essentially they said that it is no longer a crime scene, but basically said the house has been fully transferred to the university and we are able to proceed with our plans to demolish. At this point, all parties are aware of our intentions to demolish the building as quickly as possible. And obviously you read the letter, so we know the families received that letter, but it is officially no longer a crime scene. You see it's boarded up. There's still a security car outside, but it fully belongs to the university now. They've said they want to destroy it by the end of the semester. And it seems that that's really like imminent at this point. Essentially, they said that it is no longer.
So confirmation that it is no longer a crime scene. It's handed over to the University of Idaho. The property is transferred into their name, into the name of the university, and they're going to go forward with it. Again, we had Luke from Faro come on, Luke Hall. he described and we showed in great detail a crime scene in a barber shop. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you witnessed or watched that video, which was very graphic and very detailed? And we played that for a specific reason, because we wanted to give you, the audience, we wanted you guys to see what the technology is within the Faro 3D laser scanner. So by a show of hands in the chat, how many of you saw the demonstration that we put on? By placing a 1 in the chat, let us know that you saw that. If you did not see it, put a 2. I'll link that video down below in the description. Again, it was a very graphic walkthrough, fly through, and a walkthrough of the crime scene at a barber shop in Chicago. There was 3 people killed in that location, and there was also a 4th witness that was a witness to the killings. One of the victims' brothers was also murdered months after that barbershop massacre happened. But what I wanted to tell you is that the reason we put that together is we wanted you guys to see when they went into this location, when they went into 1122 King Road, the Idaho State Police Crime Lab confirmation came from Faro Industries that, in fact, 3D laser scanning was done by the crime scene evidence technicians that processed this crime scene. That means, and I'm going to say this again, if you suffer from any kind of PTSD or anything like that, we're going to talk a little bit about graphic stuff here. The Faro 3D laser scanning is going to give this jury they're going to put, the virtual 3D laser virtual head goggles on inside the courtroom, and they're going to be able to walk through this location, through this crime scene, with the victims' bodies in place as they were discovered by the crime scene unit. The emergency personnel who responded and saw that scene is what is going to be presented to them in the courtroom. And I think for those reasons, the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense agreed that that was good enough for the jurors to see. Now, people are going back to Convict Murdoch and talking about Convict Murdoch, who is guilty of killing his wife Maggie and his son Paul. And people are saying, but the jury in that case wanted to go back to the Moselle, to the dog kennels, to see the crime scene. No 2 cases are the same, folks. No 2 cases are the same. And in this particular crime scene at 1122 King Road, I'm going to put it back up on the screen again. This location, we heard from the chief of the Moscow Police Department that his first call, the very first call, was to the Idaho State Crime Lab. And he called that crime lab and they responded within hours. And that tells me that, yes, they were able to get in there with the 3D laser scanners and scan the victims as they were before they were removed from this crime scene. So 3D laser scanning was done immediately after this crime scene was discovered. And when I say immediately, within hours, they were there on the scene and processing that scene. And crime scene will not let anything be touched or moved until they do their thing. So that being said, that's what we're looking at. Let me go to the chat. And see what everybody's saying. What if a file gets lost or corrupted? They have cloud-based files, and they also do backups. We asked that question. I'm going to encourage you, Heidi Cakes, to go and watch the replay with our representative, Luke Hall from Faro 3D Laser Scanning from Faro Industries. He said that there is duplicates and quadruplicates, and there's many, many backups as far as that's concerned. That is not even an issue. Ed Wallace is in the chat, and thank you to everyone saying happy anniversary. This was an anniversary weekend. We celebrated yesterday. My wife and I went out to dinner. We went to Oheka Castle up in Huntington. It's in Suffolk County. If you want to look it up, Ohika Castle. It's a beautiful place. We had a great dinner there and hung out there. Ed Wallace is in the chat still from an undisclosed location, and he says they are not going to hear the floors, doors, or stairs squeaking. They are not going to be able to hear what can be heard from various bedrooms. Yeah, that's correct. You are correct in that respect. But they are going to be able to see what they would not be able to see if they went to that location, and that is the victims in their state of how they were and how brutally they were killed and stabbed. So they're going to be able to see that, and that is going to be high impact. It's definitely going to be high impact. So let me get to the chat real quick and see what everybody else is saying. Thank you, Natasha, for the happy anniversary wishes. Greatly appreciate that. I wanted to also talk to you about something else that I covered a couple of days ago, and that was the legislation that was on the books for a firing squad. Governor Brad Little, it was on his desk, and he, I think 2 days ago, signed it on Friday. So it looks like there could be a firing squad in Brian Kohberger's future, if in fact, and if any time there was an opportunity to go forward with a death penalty case, this case of the University of Idaho students, the 4 students that were stabbed, brutally murdered, allegedly at the hands of Brian Kohberger, this would be the case that they would apply the capital punishment to. So I want to play quickly a little piece from, again, News Nation has taken all the airtime up tonight, but they're doing all this coverage. Idaho law allows executions by firing squads. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments what you think about that, because that is what's happening right now. It was approved as a secondary method to lethal injection. And they, as we know, they cannot get the drug companies to provide the cocktail, the lethal cocktail that is used to execute in the state of Idaho. So they have somebody who's up for execution, but they can't execute this inmate, this convict, because they cannot get the pharmaceutical companies to provide the very concoction that they need, whether it's 2 things or 3 things or 1 injection. I think it's a cocktail. I believe it's a couple of different things. The governor did sign it, Melanie. The governor did sign it. All right, let's go to the piece and let's talk about it. Idaho law allows execution by firing squad. So let's take a listen.
Meanwhile, Idaho lawmakers are bringing back execution by firing squad as Governor Brad Little signs a bill to allow this often controversial type of death penalty. Under this new law, the state will only use firing squads when the drugs to perform lethal injections are unavailable. This does mean a firing squad execution could be recommended in the quadruple homicide trial for alleged killer Brian Kohberger. He is facing 4 first-degree murder charges after University of Idaho students Kaylee Consalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were found dead in their apartment last November. Now, details from the case are still emerging at this point, with experts describing Kohberger's white Elantra as a rolling crime scene. Some of the evidence police seized, including a knife sheath left behind at the victim's home, could be the key to a potential conviction. And that home near University of Idaho set to be demolished, and the victim's parents, raising concerns now that the jury will not be able to visit that crime scene in person during this trial. News Nation was exclusively able to obtain a letter the university sent to the victims' families asking them to retrieve their deceased children's belongings. Joining us now to discuss the Kohberger trial, former CIA officer and FBI Special Agent Tracy Walder. Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Natasha.
So, Tracy, let's start with Idaho's governor allowing firing squad executions, only the 5th state to allow firing squads for death row inmates. There are special circumstances that have to be met, right? And how likely is it that Kohberger could actually face this?
So that's an interesting question. As you mentioned, there's only 5 states really now that would have that as an option. And really, what I think we need to remember is that is in response to the fact that the drug that is used for lethal injection has become scarce, and there have been issues with the administration of it, resulting in people not passing away right away, having these kind of torturous deaths, which really is a violation of their constitutional rights. And so that is why they added this other option. There's been a little confusion as to, was this added because of Kohberger? No, it was not. It's really in response to this shortage of the lethal injection drug. Look, if he gets the death penalty, is this on the table? Absolutely. But we would need to look at what the supply of the lethal injection drug is, because it wouldn't be administered as a choice to him. It's an if this is not allowed thing for him.
Okay, understood. And help us understand what experts mean describing Kohberger's white Elantra as a rolling crime scene.
So, I've always felt that the car was the key to this case. And I've said that really all along. I figured once they found the car, it would really lead them to the suspect. The car, they did say in that warrant that became unsealed that the car really had been disassembled completely by law enforcement. And I really do think we have to remember when he got done, allegedly committing these crimes, he got back into that vehicle. He had to have been bathed in some kind of biological evidence, microscopic biological evidence. And I do think that that evidence was still kind of hanging out in the nooks and crannies of his car, to the point that he would have had to have taken it apart.
I feel strongly about the car. And we had retired NYPD first grade detective Tommy come on with us, and Detective Tommy said that the car is going to provide a lot of information, and 75% of homicides involve a vehicle. And I didn't even know that until Tom told me about that. He said 75% of all homicides involve a vehicle, whether the person uses that vehicle to get away with, to get to the location. But vehicles are used in 75% of these murder scenes. Isn't that amazing? But I posted the link in the chat for anybody who would be interested in coming up and giving your opinion. We're streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. So there's a lot of places where we're live. If you have a question or a concern or a comment in regards to the demolition of 1122, the King Road crime scene, please come up and let me know. I got a lot of things this week that we're going to be covering. This is just one thing that I wanted to cover before the week started. We're going to be covering the trial of Trezell and Jacqueline West. That's going to be commencing shortly. They are standing accused of murder of Sincere and Classic. So we are going to be covering that trial as that commences. I'm going to have Bayan Wang formerly from 23 ABC Bakersfield. He was early on in the coverage. He was actually there when they interviewed Trezell and Jacqueline West, the one and only time outside of California City home. So he's going to come on and join us. We're going to talk about this trial, and we're going to cover it extensively. So look for that coverage coming soon. So let me let the rest of this play because there's only a couple more minutes.
Himself in order to make all of that. I really do think we have to remember when he got done, allegedly committing these crimes, he got back into that vehicle. He had to have been bathed in some kind of biological evidence, microscopic biological evidence. And I do think that that evidence was still kind of hanging out in the nooks and crannies of his car, to the point that he would have had to have taken it apart himself in order to make all of that biological evidence go away. And so I really do think that is what is going to be the most damaging and the largest amount of ammunition that the prosecution has in this case.
And we did see it was potentially significant in the Murdaugh trial when the jury was able to visit the site of the crime in person.
So here they are talking about the convict Murdaugh trial. They're talking about the jury visiting the crime scene. Again, no two juries are the same makeup. No two juries are going to see things the same way. They're not going to come into the Kohberger trial and say, oh, well, in Murdoch, they got to go out and we want to go out. How come we can't get to go? Everybody is getting fed this this narrative, which doesn't necessarily mean that's what's the case is going to be in this. But they're going to talk about this for a couple of minutes. So let's take a listen in.
It was potentially significant in the Murdoch trial when the jury was able to visit the site of the crime in person. Do you think that in this case, the victim's parents are rightly concerned that a jury will not have the option to do that if the house is demolished?
I can understand their perspective. I think in the Murdoch trial, like you mentioned, look, that was a large property and large distances that they were talking about, and that was helpful to the jury to go there and be able to see that. I think in this case, one of the things that the parents of the victims might be thinking about is kind of that time, understanding how quickly he made it from the first floor, from the third floor to the second floor, and then out of the house, really without being noticed or confronted. And I do think that it's going to be difficult with, I know, the 3D modeling that was done of the house to really pinpoint that time. And so I can understand where they're coming from. However, I do think that the 3D models are going to provide an excellent representation to the jury of the crime scene.
So there you have it. That's Tracy Waldman. She is referring to the 3D modeling of the Faro 3D laser scanners. Old aches and pains. I love your profile picture because I happen to be a New York Mets fan. Old aches and pains says, "Don't destroy the house until the trial is over." I tend to agree with it because, like I said, when you hear from Ed Wallace and the likes of Barbara Butcher and Dr. Murray Marks and all of the experts in crime scene 101, and they say, do not tear that house down. What is the difference if you hold that house until after the completion of the trial? You leave those fences up. You don't necessarily have to have that security there, but have fences up, make it so they can't breach it, put up security cameras. You can have that place monitored 24/7 from the front and back, and then case and problem solved. Now there is no possibility that there could be any problem going forward. You preserve the home until the trial is completed and you have no more issues.
All right, really appreciate that, Tracy. And we are learning a little bit more from a source here at News Nation about Kohberger's actual experience as he's being held at this point, being considered a maximum security inmate. We know that he is allowed to take phone calls in jail and that he's allowed to have headphones for privacy so that investigators cannot listen in to his calls. Does that detail surprise you at all?
Yes and no.
I beg to differ with that. He can get phone calls without anybody listening. I think that is a crock of shit because the jails, they kind of monitor a lot of stuff. Unless he is speaking with legal counsel. I don't agree with this, but let's listen to it without me interrupting it.
Privacy so that investigators cannot listen to actual experience. All right, really appreciate that, Tracy. And we are learning a little bit more from a source here at News Nation about Kohberger's actual experience as he's being held at this point, being considered a maximum security inmate. We know that he is allowed to take phone calls in jail and that he's allowed to have headphones for privacy so that investigators cannot listen in to his calls. Does that detail surprise you at all?
Yes and no. So we have to remember he's being held at a jail, not a prison, right? Because he is awaiting his arraignment and trial. And so I think we have to remember the confines of this facility. It's not set up necessarily for the privacy that he is entitled under the law, that attorney-client privilege privacy. And so while it makes me uncomfortable, I'm not sure that there was another option that they had in terms of keeping these conversations private.
Okay, I really appreciate that.
I'm not so sure about that. Again, if he's speaking with his legal counsel, maybe those are private, but he's not getting to talk to mommy and daddy privately, or anybody for that matter. But again, let's see what's happening. I'm looking at some text messages that came in from Ed Wallace, actually viewing the live stream from the plane. Ed, am I allowed to show this? Am I allowed to show the group that you are on an airliner watching the show? I would love to be able to show this, but I'm not going to show it without Ed giving the thumbs up, giving me the okay. But yeah, so I'm responding back to Ed Wallace. Anyways, I shared the link. If anybody wants to come up and give their commentary on the 1122 King Road being demolished, I'm more than happy to have you come up and talk. But Old Aches and Pains says they're recording every single phone call. If he's using a jail phone, they're definitely using they're definitely listening in. That's how it goes when you're in jail. Well, he's in prison now. Well, actually, Kohberger's in jail. He's awaiting prison. I'm getting ahead of myself. I was thinking of another case, but yeah. So he's in the county jail, and those calls are monitored. Those calls are monitored and recorded. So that's what it is. All right. So here we go. I'm not going to dox Ed Wallace. Obviously, this is a photo of him on the plane listening to us. There it is. Ed Wallace, headphones in. He's homed in on what we're doing. I'll let Ed tell you where he's going because I'm not sure if he wants that out there. So I have it. I know exactly where he's going. I know what he's up to. He's only going to be gone for until Saturday. So he'll be back on Saturday. So let me share really quick. Wild Z Pony is on. Janelle King, Rose K, Eileen, Papa Smurf, the OG. Always great to see you, Papa Smurf. Thank you for joining. Franny Melville, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Lieutenant Pete Pranzo. Can't call in from the plane. I wish you could. That would be awesome. So I have a couple more things that I want to share with you guys because I think these things are important, and I do have limited time to talk with you guys. So we covered the firing squad. We covered a couple of different angles that we're talking about with Kohberger here. Now, again, as far as the death penalty case goes, this is a case, if there was ever the chance of a prosecutor going forward with the death penalty component, this is a ground ball. This is as straightforward as you can get as far as a death penalty capital punishment case. I don't think that there is any possible way that we can hear once this trial commences or when it gets to that death penalty phase that we're going to hear them say, no, we're not going to go for the death penalty. I would have to tell you right now, I would bet my pension on it. My police pension, I would bet that they are going to go forward with a capital punishment case here. They have Ann Taylor and all of the co-counsel who are death penalty qualified. They're putting her on the case specifically because she is death penalty qualified. And again, if there was ever a case to go forward and incorporate the death penalty, this is the case. 4 young college students were brutally murdered at knife point by an individual, alleged Brian Kohberger. So if there was ever a time to do this, it is now. The time is now. So I want you to hear, this is a short video, but this gentleman talks about the death by firing squad. And this applies to South Carolina as well. South Carolina has the death penalty by firing squad, and they're also contemplating this. So I want you guys to take a listen to this. This is a guy, his name is Robert Dunham. He's a death penalty information representative. So I want you guys to take a listen to this because this is some interesting information, and I learned something when I listened to this.
Utah has done. And so the only experience we have is with what Utah has done. Utah has carried out the death penalty by firing squad 3 times in the last 50 years. And what they do is they solicit volunteers. They start within the Department of Corrections, and then they expand through law enforcement, and then past that, you can't just want to be a marksman for the firing squad. You have to be a sharpshooter. And so you need to demonstrate that that you can shoot accurately and that you have special skills. There are people who volunteer. No one is required to do it. And then Utah uses either 5 or 6 individuals. All but one of them shoots live ammunition. The other one has a blank, and that's to give the whole group of sharpshooters deniability that they've actually killed a human being. You get brought into a special chamber. There is a chair with straps, and you are strapped into the chair. The prisoner has a hood over his or her head and a target taped to his chest right above the heart, or I should say just physically frontwards from the heart. And that is so that the sharpshooters have something to aim at. When the sharpshooters are not in the same room, they're in a different room, and there are slots through which they put their guns. And they aim and they fire on command. And if things go properly, the person is shot through the heart 4 or 5 times. The death is supposed to be instantaneous.
So here's where everyone gets caught up on this. Everybody's saying that there's 4 or 5 people and only one has the live round. I understood it and listened to it as only one has a blank and all the rest have live rounds. And he just says the person is shot 4 or 5 times through the heart. And if you have 6 people and 1 blank, then there's the 5 shots. If you have 5 people and 1 blank, there's the 4 shots. So let's listen to this expert on the death penalty describe the process.
On command and slots through which, and that is so that the sharpshooters have something to aim at. When the sharpshooters are not in the same room, they're in a different room, and there are slots through which they put their guns. And they aim and they fire on command. And if things go properly, the person is shot through the heart 4 or 5 times. The death is...
Okay, so did everybody hear that? The person is shot through the heart 4 or 5 times. So I think that some people, when they read or listen to this, they're misconstruing what they're saying. So, be that as it may, that is what a firing squad does. And we'll listen to the rest of what this gentleman has to say.
Is supposed to be instantaneous. Witnesses are in another room. The execution room looks a bit like a bunker. There are sandbags that are set up around the chair to which the prisoner is strapped, so that if the bullets penetrate the body, go through, and then ricochet, they get caught. Or if there's a stray bullet, it doesn't go too far astray. It's it's hard to even talk about it because it's such a brutal act, and you have to make it common in order to think about going through.
This is, he's having his connectivity problems. Sleuthy, good to see you. There's my good friend Sleuthy. I'll go back to this in a second because I want to again highlight her comment. She said, I admit I've understood it to be 1 bullet so that none of them would know that they are firing the real shot, but that's not the case. And if you listen to this clip that I played, if you listen to it kind of slowly with the headphones on, you hear what he says. In the beginning, he says one person is got a blank, all the rest have live ammo. And then he further states at the middle of this thing is that if it goes the way it planned, either 4 or 5 shots go through the person's heart. If you only have 1 person shooting a bullet, how are 4 or 5 shots going through the heart? So that's where we're at. Let me take this off because I got a special guest from the United Kingdom, Karen Cole. She is she's an attorney from the UK. She does all of my reels that you see on Instagram. So thank you, Karen, for what you do on Instagram. And I'm hoping that she has something good to say because she's an attorney. Karen, welcome.
Hi, DutyRon. Yes, I think what the law says on destroying or altering evidence when there's pending litigation, can really make a difference. And I think that what happens in law is that if you destroy or alterate any evidence, then that could be very unfavorable for the party who destroys it. So I'm more concerned about what if for any reason Kohberger is not found guilty and they find someone else. What are they going to do about that?
Yeah, so that's always a concern. But here's the thing, Karen. They're relying on that 3D laser scanning and the Faro technology.
Is that acceptable in court, though?
Absolutely. 100%. Yes. So now I can give you a little scolding and say that you haven't been paying close attention, because we asked, Ed Wallace and I, 2 times. I'm going to smile because I love you. I'm smiling because I love you. But yeah, that was one of the questions that we asked 2 different times to Luke Hall from Faro Industries. We said, is this admissible in court? And he said 100%. The technology is admissible in court.
And I heard that. I heard when he said that, but I have more concerns about metadata being changed and the other side saying, well, how do we know that's the right angle? Or, so I just think sometimes if the house is evidence, then I don't think it should be destroyed to protect.
So let me ask you this. So if they find Kohberger not guilty, right?
Yeah.
As you just said, and they never get anybody in custody for this, just like the OJ case, right? OJ was innocent, right? Nobody was brought forward for the murders of his wife and her friend. And so what were they supposed to do? Hold that crime scene forever?
Well, what they did, I don't know if you...
Where do you draw the line?
Well, if you saw... in England, we had a big case called the Fred West case. And they ended up, after they were convicted, they destroyed everything. But in the meantime, the police there's a warehouse that has all bits of that house. And he was a killer in the UK. He killed, a serial killer. So I think they can still take evidence from that house and keep it in a warehouse, do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we have that here in New York City. So we have a huge, there's a couple of places where we store all of our evidence from crime scenes, guns, knives, weapons. It's a big, huge warehouse. But not all places are set up like that. And I don't think that Moscow, Idaho Police Department of just a couple of police officers, I don't think that they're set up for that. So
didn't the governor put a lot of money into it, like put millions, so they could rent somewhere?
Right. He put $1 million into resources towards the investigation of finding a perpetrator. There was nobody in custody, if you could recall, at the time when the governor, Brad Little, put $1 million into the investigation. There was nobody in custody. So that was to pay for overtime for the detectives, or, overtime and resources to find a perpetrator, which they've done. So again, there is no set good answer to this thing. But I can tell you this, Karen, the defense and the prosecutor and the judge are all on board with this, because if they weren't, there would be an order coming out from the court.
Of course, the defense is going to be on board. It's like, it makes sense for them.
The prosecutor has to be on board, and so does the judge. But the bottom line is we saw how quickly this crime scene remediation team was halted once Kohberger was put into custody. The defense right away said, no, I want to get my guy to go in there. And they hired a crime scene guy from the state of Washington to come in. And what did he do? He used the Faro 3D laser scanner in there. And that's confirmed as well.
So so that was my concern, and that's good that they allow the 3D scanners. I would just think that where the problem would be is if he's not the person, and then So I would like to have seen them take some. Like, wasn't there blood coming off the house and stuff? Like, there's a lot of evidence that I would have thought they should keep.
Yes. Ed and I, again, we spoke and we covered the blood coming out of the side of the house, and we confirmed that, that was not rust from a pipe, as people said.
Yeah.
Number 2 red fuel oil dye. That was blood that was dripping out of the side of the house in the back, off of the patio in the back. Crime scene and Faro 3D laser scanner did not only the interior of that home, but they did the exterior. So everything around it, jurors can now put those VR goggles on and walk right in through the back door, just as the perpetrator allegedly did. And they could walk in, they could walk out, they could walk up, they could walk down, and they can go all over the place.
And I think you did mention that in the Murdoch case, it did really make a difference to the jury that they were allowed to go and walk around the property, because
Yes.
in the photographs and in the imagery, it was so different, they said, to the real feeling of being there. So
Yeah. And they used the 3D laser scanners in that case, but they just didn't present it in court. They didn't present
and I think for this jury, it will be important for them to understand, like, where it is from the street, where you could park, how you could be not seen if you were above in the parking lot behind. So it just seems like yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Karen. But again, it just gets confusing to me. It gets confusing to me and others, because if you look at the big picture here, nobody's stopping it. And that's what's freaking me out. Like,
I don't get it. So
I don't get it either.
I don't get it.
But,
Okay.
Karen, if you don't mind, I want to say,
No, go on.
I hope everybody comes over to Legal Minded Friends. I'll link Karen's YouTube channel. She does so many great informative videos. She's a lawyer. She's an attorney in the United Kingdom. She does a lot of good for Crime Time with DutyRon. She helps me out with my reels and all of the things that I do on social media. So Karen does that, and she does it. I don't get a bill from her. And that's the great part about Karen, is that she does it because she really wants to be a part of this community, and she helps me tremendously. So I'm encouraging everyone to go over to Legal Minded Friends, Karen. If somebody in the mods or somebody in the mod squad could put her channel link in the chat, I would appreciate that. And I will also, Dawn's there, so I know Dawn will do it.
Thanks, Dawn.
Yeah, and then I will put in the description your YouTube channel. You want to tell everybody what you do on your channel, Karen?
Yeah, so Legal Minded Friends was set up during COVID. I practice as Legal Minded Friends, but then during COVID, I thought a good way to reach clients, and I use the YouTube channel almost like, if you call me up and ask me a question, and I say, like if you say you want to get contact with your grandchildren, then I have a video on that, and you can read about the law. You can see it in a visual format. So it kind of gives a bit of a heads up. And then, because I think all legal issues, if people are going through a legal issue, they don't sleep well. So it's kind of like an all-encompassing. So there might be, different things of like, why me? And so it's about the process of the law and ways that you can help yourself to get back to your own life. Because when you're going through a legal matter, it takes up all of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And you hope to never have to use an attorney, but I think lots of people do at some point or another in their lives.
That's what I say. I say, I hope I never see you again.
Exactly. NC Reigns, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. We greatly appreciate you. And thank you to anyone and everyone who gives super chat and also super thanks. It's another way to say thank you after the live is over. So a lot of you guys watch the videos that Ed and I put on, and then you leave super thanks, and it's just like a super chat for the replay viewers. So thank you to all the super thanks people and the super chat folks. You were the only brave one that wanted to come up and talk to me. Karen, I'm glad you did, because I'm just continually putting out the link. I just did it again.
Do you know what I realized? I tried to sign in many times, so I don't know if people can see the problem, but it doesn't come through from a Streamlab. It comes through from you. So I think, when I tried to connect.
Yeah, but it's StreamYard that I'm using, not StreamLab.
Yeah, but if No, but in the comments, there's something that says join here, but then that just brings you back to your website or whatever.
What?
It didn't bring me to this. So I think if people see
Yeah,
your
but
comment,
how did you get on? How did you get on here then?
it said you, like it was from you. You said join and it was highlighted in yellow or something, but the ones before that were just like connecting
Okay.
to, yeah.
Hey, so
So
what did you think of this Death by Firing Squad, the piece that I was playing before you came on? This Robert.
yeah,
You want to take a listen to this with me and then comment?
yeah, then I'll comment on that. Yeah.
All right, let's play it. So I'm just going to replay this. This is Death by Firing Squad. He refers to the state of Utah, but a lot of people are using the same method. So let's listen, and let's listen closely to this, because he talks about the live ammo and one person with a dummy round, and he talks about it early on. Janelle Keen, thank you for subscribing to Legal Minded Friends. Karen Cole, she's so awesome. So awesome.
The only experience we have is with what Utah has done. Utah has carried out the death penalty by firing squad 3 times in the last 50 years. And what they do is they solicit volunteers. They start within the Department of Corrections, and then they expand through law enforcement, and then past that, you can't just want to be a marksman for the firing squad. You have to be a sharpshooter, and so you need to demonstrate that that you can shoot accurately and that you have special skills. There are people who volunteer. No one is required to do it, and then Utah uses either 5 or 6 individuals. All but one of them shoots live ammunition. The other one has
all but one of them shoots live ammunition. You got that right, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because there's people that are saying all over the internet that only one person has the live ammo. Let me add in Sluti. She's driving. She's not driving. She's being driven, but she wants to come on, and I always love her input. So Sluti, you got it. What's going on?
I haven't talked to you in forever.
I know. What the hell? Where have you been?
Hi, Sluthi.
Hey, how are you?
So,
fine.
What have you been up to?
Well, I've been doing this Idaho stuff. I've just been I've been all in these documents looking at stuff, so many questions. But this particular firing squad thing, I hear it being talked about a lot. I will admit that I also thought that one person had a live round, just simply because, as I understand it, the purpose is so that you don't really know who did it. And I feel like if only one shot went in, I could convince myself it wasn't me out of 5 if there were only one. But if there were 4 or 5 shots, I'd be like, the odds of it being mine is very high. Do you see what I mean?
Right. But when everybody shoots on command in a firing line, and these are marksmen, these are experts. So it's with the rifle, it's just boom. So it's not like you're hearing boom, 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 boom. It's everyone shooting at the same time. So when you're on the line and you have your headset on, your goggles, your headset. I mean, I shot at the NYPD, gazillions of times. Everybody's shooting at different intervals, and it's like pow, 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 pow. But with this, it's just wow. It's just one bam. It's not like you're going to hear 5 shots. You're going to hear one loud bang at the same time. They all do it together. So again, he describes it in detail 2 times in this video, and this is 3 minutes, and it's from the Death Penalty Information Center. And I thought that this was really valuable information for everybody to have, because I saw on Twitter, not on your Twitter, but and thank you for being honest about it, but I saw it on many other people's feeds, and everybody was questioning me and coming at me when I was describing, no, person gets shot multiple times to make sure that A, the heart stops immediately, and B, that's just how this firing squad goes. And it is barbaric. As far as I'm concerned, like Ed Wallace and I said Well, what about you can't gas somebody? Like, listen, there's people all the time that get too much anesthesia and die in a hospital
Right.
getting the regular surgery, right? My brother-in-law, for Christ's sake, in October went for back surgery and 9 hours of anesthesia. He died in the recovery room, in the ICU, but they got him back. His heart stopped. He died. His heart stopped, and they got him back. But we think it was because of too much anesthesia, you know? So
Yeah.
you're telling me that big pharma can bilk us for billions of dollars every year, people that are diabetic and all kinds of
Well,
drugs that need to be taken as a regular regimen, and you're going to tell me that big pharma can't come up or supply the right dose to
it's
stop somebody's heart? Come on.
yeah, it's not that. So I'll just briefly. So when they do lethal injection, they are sure, because there are witnesses, right? And they are sure to make sure that that labels are not visible, so you can't tell, or the witnesses can't tell, what pharmaceutical company is the one that supplied it. Okay, because these pharmaceutical companies, big ones, Wyeth, well, I think that's now Pfizer, they have a problem with supplying drugs that are used to kill someone, and on
The
top of that,
liability issues?
yes, they're worried that it's about money, and they don't want to lose business if hospitals find out that their drugs are going for something controversial, which the death penalty is. I mean,
Right.
so they keep it. And if you go, there's a really great website that has a bunch of PDFs that you can download from different pharmaceutical companies that stress to the companies that they should not be selling to, you know, places that are doing that, carrying out the death penalty and things like that. So I don't think that it's a matter of that it doesn't exist. I think that the medicines absolutely exist, and in a lot of quantity, but I think that the issue is getting the manufacturers to give it to them for this specific purpose. And you're right, this firing line, it's barbaric. Would you rather just lay down and then like give you medicine and you go to sleep, or have a bag put over your head and a target on your chest and tied down to a chair and have to wait for what you know is coming? I mean, that's
right.
You know.
And you get to see a doctor come with a stethoscope to find out exactly where your heart is, and this is where we're going to have everybody shoot right over the place where your heart's pounding. So yeah, it's listen, man, this is a tough conversation to have, and a lot of people are like, oh, I'll volunteer for the firing squad. And then in a couple of these tough cases, I've in anger said that myself, like, I'll volunteer, but it's not that easy. Look, Ed Wallace is flying on a plane going outside the country, and he's putting stuff in the chat. He's going crazy right now. Look at this comment.
I saw
If you give them all Glocks with the original polygon arrows and let them fly a live round, they'll never be able to say which bullet that killed the prisoner. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I go back and forth. I have felt that way also, but I also think that it's minimizing what it actually takes to take a human life, and the struggle that even police officers, people that are trained to do something like that, people in the military, the struggle that it does to you mentally is much more than anyone could ever possibly expect. It's not like, where I'm deer hunting and I'm doing it for food and I pray over the deer afterwards and I thank God. It's, you're taking another person's life, and regardless of what they did, it is a personal, it will personally hurt you,
And if you look at the chat and look at the chatter on Twitter and on, social media, in the Reddit groups about Brian Kohberger, and anybody who's, killing multiple people, there's going to be a lot of people that have comments like this. Natasha Richardson says, murderers should die, in my opinion. Yes, but there's people who say they should die by spending the rest of their entire life in jail, in prison, because that is also kind of torturous in a way, because you're being, controlled. Everything that you do is controlled for the most part, and you're behind four walls. So you're basically rotting inside of a cage, the way I look at it, right? You're maybe sharing that cage with another inmate, a convict, or maybe you're by yourself. And even when you're by yourself, that's psychological torture. And sometimes that's even, people would argue and say that's hellish to go through psychological torture with no contact with the outside world, no daylight, not seeing, daylight as often as a regular person would be able to. But, there's other people that say, give them, inject them, give them fentanyl. I see in the chat, give them fentanyl. What about a guillotine? That's quick.
Oh my gosh.
Right? We're not in Iraq, so, I'm seeing everything in the chat,
Oh Lord.
it's people are, but they're looking at these victims and their families who are left behind, and they're like, mad as hell, and they don't want to take it anymore. So people get really pissed when you talk about death like this, when you talk about lethal injection firing squads, and then people also get pissed when they hear that the person's going to get, lifetime of food, drugs, medical attention, psychological attention, church services, all kinds of stuff you get when you're inside. You can get to use an iPad and watch TV, laugh and joke, work out, have a good, you're able to have a life, for the most part, inside four walls, but you're still living and breathing. So there's arguments on both sides of this thing,
And what about the legal benefits of being on death row? Because there's a higher opportunity of appeal, whereas if you get life in prison, it's harder to appeal those. So
really?
I think, so it's like,
yeah.
I think you've got a guarantee with someone being put in life in prison, they're going to stay there for life.
Right.
I
just wish that the life in prisons, especially the brutal ones like these guys, the Chris Watts, I mean, I could just go on and on with this. They should be put in a hole down underneath the prison, and put in a hole, and they could lower a bucket, for food and water, and let them shit down there. And
I mean, just the idea.
lotion.
Yeah, especially with Chris Watts. If you watch the FBI interview with him, he talks about it as if it just happened, and that's pretty disturbing,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
definitely.
So that's what makes it tough. But go ahead, Sue.
I think, and if you're thinking about, if you're just looking at numbers, right? When it comes to, well, we're bringing back the firing squad. Kohberger might face the firing squad. The real fact about it is, the reality of it is that Idaho hardly ever puts anybody to death, like ever. I mean, they might put them on death row, but they've like hardly ever in the history of the death penalty have ever put anyone to death.
I know. I researched it. Yep.
So there's that, but then also I think it's a misunderstanding of exactly what. Now, if personally for me, if there was ever a case that I felt warranted something like the death penalty, this would be it.
Oh yeah.
But I think that a lot of people think like a murder, and then they what they consider to be heinous, which I feel like any murder, you can't take someone's life and not be heinous, but it's very much reserved for people who are not just only unsafe for society out in the world, in the free world, but they're unsafe inside a prison as well. They're unsafe to other inmates, they're unsafe to other officers, like they're unsafe to be around any other humans, period.
Right.
It's not like they're just like, oh, well, you did this and you took this person's life, these two people's life, even sometimes these three people's life, so now we will take yours. It really much depends on the crime itself. And like I said, he would be it,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have the Hannibal Lecters out there, and you have the people who, listen, there's some inmates that get convicted to life in prison for taking another person's life, and they kill somebody else inside prison. And they kill multiple people inside prison. So, some of this stuff is, and if you look this up, Sleuthie, your head will spin, because there's a high number of convicts who are doing life in prison who wind up killing other inmates or jail guards in prison.
Yeah, well, because they don't have anything to lose at that point. And I think that's also what would be taken into consideration when you're trying to figure out if someone is capable of reasonably spending their life in prison, or if they're going to end up doing something else again.
Right. There's some people that need to be put down in my eyes, and I've seen so much evil in my time as a police officer and a detective, but you know, you don't really get a great understanding of what evil is until you face them. Like,
Oh, no
I remember
doubt.
the first time I put somebody in handcuffs that took somebody else's life. That was like life changing for me to be and actually touch someone who killed somebody, right? Most of us just sit at home and talk about this, right? And that's the way it should be.
Right.
None of us should have to come into contact with somebody who's killed one or more people. But the real reality is these people exist and they walk amongst us, right? And there's
You know, the other thing I just read as I was looking something up is the average cost for a death row appeal that would cost the state is $137,000
For one?
Yeah, for one.
And they get
and that,
multiple, do they not? Like over a period of so many years?
and in some states it says that they have a mandatory option for appeal. So, you know, you got to look at that. So sometimes asking for the death penalty is not really in the defendants. If you think of the victims,
right.
It's not really in their best interest, you know?
Yeah. It's an expensive thing. And I think, you know, even put the firing squad at the forefront, right? It's the cheapest way out, but you're still going to get all the appeals and you're still going to be housing that slug, that piece of shit.
Every appeal. That's
for 20 years. So this person is still going to be living and breathing for 2 decades or more, and still costing us money each year that goes by. Charleston Amy, thank you for the $20 super chat, and also Sumina, thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate your support. You guys are great. Thank you for that. But you know, girls, this conversation can just continue to go on and on and on, because we can never meet to a happy medium, because there is no happy medium here. This is always going to cost money. It's always going to be a process that's going to drag on. And you know, some people will say and argue, hey, we got to make sure that conviction was right, because people get falsely accused, right? There's so many people who get exonerated after doing long periods of time. Like Marty Tankliff, he's on the Innocence Project. He's an attorney now. He was accused at 17 years old of killing his parents, his adoptive parents. And he did 17 years in prison in upstate New York. And he was exonerated after 17 years. And now he's going out and fighting for other wrongfully accused. So there's
something on Netflix as well. There's I can't remember the name of the show, but it's all about death row people who
Exhibit A. There's one that's called Exhibit A on Hulu, and it's wonderful. That's all it is people. But this is a conversation that could literally, I mean, if you're thinking about this from a logical and a reasonable standpoint as opposed to an emotional one, it's something that could go on forever and ever, because there's so many different I go back and forth all the time. I mean, even that alone, if you're thinking about it, you can look at it from a money standpoint and it's say one thing. Then you can look at it from what if it's, you know, do we have to be giving people a certain length of time for an opportunity to, you know, are we sure that they actually did it? But then it's like, well, then why are they there if we're not sure? Like, we should have already gotten there, right? Proven beyond a reasonable doubt. We should already know this shouldn't be in question still. So,
but we have all these cases to compare it to where people were exonerated.
Absolutely.
Serving multiple years, decades of time of their lives, and they are now found not guilty through DNA, you know, advancement and so forth. But anyways, let me reel it in as the host here. What is, and I'll start with you, Karen, and I'll go to Sleuthi. What's your thoughts on the demolition of 1122 King Road, the homicide crime scene in Moscow, Idaho? Karen.
Okay, well, obviously, I think it should not be done.
You're an attorney, so
yeah, I would definitely say any evidence that can be preserved should be preserved, even if it takes putting it in a warehouse until they're absolutely sure.
What about the building?
Yeah, so they can take parts of the building, couldn't they?
Yeah, but
that's what they did in Fred West. They actually took doors and windows. stairways.
They want to demolish it. What's your thoughts on the demolishing of that building?
No way. I say no, but yeah.
Sleuthy?
I don't even understand why the community doesn't understand that it should be taken down.
They want it down. They want it down.
I know. I don't know. But do people really still go and want to view it like a horror house or something? Is that why?
It's not even about that. They just want it down. The community has come together, and the University of Idaho, and all the students and the parents and the people who live there. But Sleuthy, what's your thoughts on it?
So I get that. I understand the people, because there are a lot of people that live around that house, and I understand not wanting, what kind of bad feelings and things that it reminds them of when they walk by it. However, if you could look into the future, right? And just like that feeling that you were saying that you felt, Ron, where you it's a totally different feeling when you actually have your hands on a person and you know what they've done and what they were capable of. If you could look into the future and you could say, is my suffering right now worth putting up with it until this person is 100% found to be the person? And the only way that, and I'm not saying that this is the only way that it will happen, but to get an extra leg up to have jurors go in that house and feel what you're feeling. And if you're feeling that from the outside of the house, imagine what these people would feel. I mean, it would be traumatizing for sure.
That's a really, really good point.
Yeah, that might be what tips everything in that direction where then he's actually found guilty. So, I mean, short-term suffering for the person responsible to go away forever and ever and then knock it down, I think that would be worth it to me.
Long-term gain,
Thank you for that, Sleuthy. Yeah, I go and I yield to the experts. And once I heard my partner, Ed Wallace, say that it shouldn't be torn down, then I have to agree with him. I wasn't in disagreement. I just said that I knew that this was not just a crazy decision that was made by the University of Idaho and the owners of that property. This is not a 1-2 decision. This is defense, prosecution, judge, owner of the property, University of Idaho. They're all coming together. And the legal side of it, they have to be okay with it. And like Karen said, well, of course the defense is going to be okay with it. Get rid of the evidence. It's
right.
It's not in my clients to want that to get rid of that. That's great. But
the police don't want to keep it forever because they don't want to pay for it, right?
but the police, that's not costing the police anything to have that kept there. For them to secure that as a crime scene, which it's no longer, the tape is down. Anybody can go in there. Anybody legally can go in there with permission. And
no, they should keep it then, DutyRon. Then they should keep it if it's not costing anything.
It's not costing them anything. It's not.
No.
Yeah. I feel like, and we all know, I mean, not to say that like I don't think that Brian Kohberger did it, but I also haven't seen everything, so I don't know that he did either. But for me, being as critical as I am and what, beyond a reasonable doubt would mean to me, I'm here to tell you that me as a juror, walking through that house would greatly sway me one way or the other and towards likely guilty, regardless, really, to be honest, of everything else. Just like she said, how are they going to show the blood on the outside of the house?
Yeah, but
and inside.
They're going to show it by video, and
that's totally different.
Right,
that's
but
different.
many trials and cases get solved that way. And I sat in, and I'm going to have to mention this. I sat in on the Karina Vetrano trial. She was a jogger in New York, a young 28-year-old a special needs teacher who was brutally raped and beaten in Queens. And the jury did not want to go out to that scene where she was killed and left in a puddle of water face down. But I sat in the front row of opening statements, and I saw the district attorney show pictures of her lifeless body in a pool of water face down. The parents were right behind me sobbing, and they watched the crime scene photos and videos. And the jurors got to see everything. They're going to not only see the Faro stuff, they're going to also see regular still high definition pictures and video of the inside and outside of that home. Again, it doesn't It
But
doesn't.
that's not evidence that he did something. So
Well,
I think,
Well,
you
if
know,
yeah,
he's presented with stuff that we don't know about, and he cut himself, as Barbara Butcher talked about the other night, and I played that piece. She said it's literally, the chances of him not cutting himself or hurting himself or commingling a piece of his hair or a piece of anything is
yeah.
just so remote and so.
So the evidence, if the evidence is so overwhelming, then sorry.
That is why they're releasing and letting that house.
Yeah, and then that might make a difference. But if it's not, and we have to go to the scene,
Yeah.
I also worry about overconfidence and and basically like what you were saying. If I'm thinking like a prosecutor, there was the option to take the jury to the crime scene, right? But they saw the pictures, they saw the family's reactions to the pictures and stuff, and they chose not to go. Me as a prosecutor, the fact that those 12 people don't want to go would mean a win for me, in the sense that they were already so moved and affected by what it was that
yeah,
they did not want to go, because they knew, like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. So I think if it's an option, if it's doable and they can keep it, that's one thing. If you're talking about something outside, or somebody else's house or an apartment complex, I think that's different. But if they can preserve that house, I'm not sure why you wouldn't.
Right.
yeah. And I think I think it's, yeah, I think it's good if they could walk through the bedrooms, right, and walk down the stairs, because I think it gives the perception that you get is that it's a big house, but maybe when you're inside it, you can see how he could do everything in 4 minutes.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's insane. NC Rain sends in a $5 super chat. And she says, how much does it cost to keep one prisoner in prison for life? A lot of money. And I don't know the exact figures because it varies.
It's 71,000 a year in England.
Right. But it varies from facility to facility depending on the person's housing level. And Anthony from Tier Talk and Connie, they talked about this because I asked that question another time on one of my other videos. And a prisoner like, Chris Watts will cost a lot more in the United States than it would be for a regular Joe Blow that doesn't have any special housing needs. In other words, Chris Watts, somebody in PC, protective custody, you got to put 2 guards on them. You got to always be watching them. It's special attention. So it varies, but it is a lot of money. I can tell you that right now. Hour and 21 minutes, Karen. We did a great job. You did a great job here with me. I appreciate you being here. Guys and girls in the chat, thank you so much for engaging with this community. Let me know what you think about 1122 King Road, the University of Idaho's. They now own that crime scene home, the house. They call it the King Road crime scene home. They're going to demolish that building in a very short period of time. The wheels are in motion. They're moving forward to demolishing that home where those heinous murders occurred. Let me know what you think about that down below in the comment section. I want to say thank you to the super chatters, the replay viewers, the moderators, the live chatters, and all of the friends and folks who recently and in the past and have been subscribers a long period of time here on Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. This is an area where on YouTube where you'll get true crime related items and topics from a police perspective. So if you like that, just consider subscribing to this community. You won't regret it. And we have a 30-day money back guarantee. You subscribe.
Excellent, excellent coverage, DutyRon.
Thank you, Karen. And you do a great job of supplementing, obviously, all the stuff that we do. You piggyback sometimes off of some of the topics and the discussions that we have. And I love your channel, Karen, Minded Friends. That'll be linked also down below in the description. Everyone go over and subscribe to Karen's channel. We greatly appreciate all of your input. So let us know. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Karen, you're not coming to TikTok, are you?
Yeah. I know you keep saying that. Thanks, Sleuthie, and thanks, chat. The best chat ever.
Yeah, we got a great community.
And Ed Wallace on a plane. I can't believe he's calling us from the plane.
He's heading over
the plane, boss.
He's heading over into a part of the world that is in a little bit of it's a little bit of a rough spot where he's heading to. So it's right on the border of Ukraine, and Ed is he's a brave soul, and he's only going to be there for 5 days or so. So I'm hoping he can get in there and get out and get back home. He should be back on Saturday. Again, thank you to all of the mods. You guys are great. Unbelievable. The mod squad, Diane B, always present. Katina, I want to just mention a couple of people. Team Brittany, thank you for what you do. Michelina, Martha, Princess Mitch, Rob, her husband, Richella, and Pete Pranzo, Lake Lizard, Sharon Creates. She is awesome. Always making stuff. She made a bunch of blankets for Twyla and the team up in EquiSearch Midwest, and I sent all that stuff over to them. They greatly appreciated that. Thank you for all you do, sweet one. I have to acknowledge these friends of the community. Joey Brooklyn did a great live today from the beach. Thank you for that. Sunset Gazing. I saw her in there, and her and I had some really fun banter back and forth because Joey was talking about sunset gazing, and I was like, oh. Isn't it amazing sunset gazing like sunsets? But thank you for the anniversary wishes. Okie dokie, Natasha Richardson, all the great friends hanging out, Barbara George. And if I didn't get to you, I thank you and I appreciate you for being here. A lot of people have joined in the Patreon group. We did a Patreon only live stream and a members only live stream for for the great people who support us. And that was this weekend. I think, it was yesterday. We did this live stream, and Dave Rader from EquiSearch, the search coordinator, he joined in. So if you're not yet a member or a Patreon subscriber, go over there. It's exclusive content that you won't see on YouTube. He's
Dave and Twyla, amazing people. Genuine, straight up.
We heard from Twyla last week on a members only. And then we circled back with Dave, and Twyla was on a search in Alabama, and she was in a cemetery, and she took a break from her search in a cemetery, and about 30 minutes after that, she found a human hand.
Wow!
So they're still, I think, analyzing to see if that was the subject, the person that they were looking for, but she recovered a human hand, which was just unbelievable.
So we'll do the fundraising for them in April or something, right?
Open next month to do a fundraiser. Team Brittany sends in a $20 super chat. And she says, thanks as always, DutyRon, professional as always. Thank you. All right, guys and girls, I'm going to end it here. Me and Karen are going to say goodbye. Karen, will you hang out and watch watch our outro with Popeye? Oh, wait. Let's see what Popeye's up to. Let's see what Popeye's up to. There he is. Hold on. Popeye cam. He's eating. He's up there. See that top dish up here where he is?
Yeah.
Where I put his treats, like all the little fruits and vegetables in there. So he loves to eat them and fling them around, and then I have to clean up the room. So
now, did you say he was 17 years old?
He's 35, Karen. He's 35.
What?
Yeah.
What?
35 years old. So that's my boy. And you get to see like all my I shut this monitor off because I didn't want everybody to get scared because that thing is big. And look at what's here. Look what's here. My EquiSearch.
EquiSearch.
And and my badge.
Your badge. Nice.
All right, so that's that. Let's get me back and focused here. All right, on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to say thank you for joining. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being part of this community. Again, make sure you like, subscribe. If you're here, hit the thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. And also share this video out onto your social media platforms. As I always like to end these things, God bless the world. God bless the United States of America. God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially the victims and their families. We send them strength, prayers, and positive vibes. Stand by for a special message from Popeye, Oscar, and Kara, our security team. Thank you, Karen. See you guys soon.
Night.